Today I'm going to show you how to sharpen a knife cheaply, efficiently and effectively. It took me months and months to get this right. I've watched loads and loads of YouTube videos and I finally got there after hours and hours of practice. But you don't have to practice those many hours, you just need simple, straightforward techniques. The problem I found was that there's tons and tons of YouTube videos out there, but often people will be sharpening a knife that's already sharp. It'll be a brand new one. So they're basically sharpening something which is already sharp. You're not really seeing anything new. Well, this is a knife I used over the weekend. It's just a Mora knife. And as you can see, it's marked and dull. Just want to show you the condition of the knife currently. You can see there's loads of pits and marks in there. Just took an absolute battering over the weekend. See all the scratches and marks on there? You can even, there you go, you can even see the dinks in the bottom of the blade, on the tip. Got to get all of those out. I'll just show you how dull it is to prove that I'm not making it up. There's nothing on the tip. Let's have a look at the bottom. There's a bit of edge on the bottom. Right, the bottom's not too bad. But as the tip, nothing there at all, it's just jagged in here and through. That's what you expect through knife use. Anyway, let's crack on with the sharpening. So, all you need is various grades of wet and dry sandpaper. And this is 400 grit. Okay. And the method you use is a permanent marker. You've probably heard of it before. So what we do is we just permanent mark the edge, just colour it in like that. One thing which is worth mentioning is that before you start sharpening, give your knife a good wash so it clears off any debris or any grit or anything else which might be on there. So when it comes to sharpening the knife, then that's all gone and you're just dealing with the blade edge. I don't really like the term sharpening because it sounds like you've got to grind stuff out and wear it away, and the actual idea of knife sharpening to get a really good edge is all about polishing. It's about scratches, getting uniform scratches, starting off with big scratches, which will be the big grits, and they're working down to the finer scratches, and the finer and the finer and the finer. And the finer the scratches you get, the sharper your knife will be. And I can feel as I'm colouring this in, the blade edge has had a real hammering. That's okay, we'll get them out. So now I've coloured it in, it looks pretty. The purpose of colouring in the edge is so we get the right angle. And this is how I do it. Just put it down there, tip it until it touches the edge, and just pull it across. And have a look. You can see the removal there. And if you look where the pen is, I've removed more metal towards the back of the edge than at the front. There's still a line there. So that means that I'm leaning a bit too far back. I need to put a little bit more pressure on forward, if that makes sense. So I'll do it again. See how it's now starting to polish off? And all the marker which remains shows you what's not being polished or polished out. You don't really need any pressure on. The marker will tell you if you need any pressure. I'll do it the other side as well. A little bit too edge heavy. It's quite difficult to do this with a camera setup. And I like to do even strokes. Let's have a look at the progress. So you can see the scratch lines going down. Thousands of scratch lines. And that's what polishing is all about and sharpening. It's putting nice scratches on there and scratching away. And then making those scratches finer and finer. So you can see whether there's some marker left. That's where I'm not quite getting it. And normally if you've got a line going across the middle there, it just requires a little bit more pressure to rub out those marker. See the scratching there? And I'll work through the tip as well. But I'm getting nice brush through the whole edge. Let's have a look on the other side. You can see here that I'm going at too low an angle. I need to be steeper, because the very edge of the blade has still got loads of marker on, so I need to tilt the blade up a little bit more and then wipe through it. So I've just worked it a little more off camera. You can see what I've done now. Just rubbed it a bit more and more. If you notice, all the scratches are uniform and all of them are the same size. If you've got any bigger scratches or bigger marks on there, they've got to come off. So just keep repeat the process. You hear on YouTube sometimes and other places, oh, do 15 wipes this way and 15 wipes that way, and then you're done. But it's done when it's done. The way you can tell that is by uniform scratches. As long as you've got uniform scratches along there, there's no bigger ones, there's no marks, you can move on to the next round. See? All uniform and all even. So now we want to work towards the tip. And continue doing these passes till you're working towards the tip. And then just hold it at the angle. Move it around like that. So that's the 400 grit out the way. I had to mark up a good few extra times, probably about 4 or 5 times. Marker up the tip here and there, and run a pass over those about 4 or 5 times because it had got so many dinks in it. I've been digging up burdock roots and hitting stones and all sorts, so I had to go over the tip about 4 or 5 times extra. So now we're on to 600 grit. Exactly the same process. Just colour it in. And it's all about removing the scratches. I've got an even 400 grit scratch on there, and now I want an even 600 grit scratch. You get dull knives and you've got different size scratches, and the smaller scratches you have, the sharper your knife is. And even the sharpest knives, if you look under a microscope, you'll see they've got very fine scratches, and that's what it's all about. It's back to work. You've got to be careful not to roll over when you lift up, so don't pull along and then flick out. Don't pull along then flick out, because you'll roll over the edge, and also not enough angle. I find with me that I tend to roll over more than have too less angle. And you can see there I'm rolling over a little bit too much, so I've got to have less of an angle. There we go. Better. You can do this much quicker once you've got the hang of the angle and you haven't got camera equipment in the way. You can work with your knife relatively quickly. Let's show you what full speed does. This is what full speed looks like. You can only really do this speed once you've had a lot of practice, so for the beginner I'd say start out slow, do the full passes, feeling the angle of the edge. No, just tipping it over until you feel the edge bite and then pushing away. Tipping it over till you find the edge and pulling it to you. And keep doing that. But I've done this so many times now I can get away with doing it a bit quicker. And the speed will come. I know with a lot of bushcrafters they worry about sharpening the knife and they think they have to buy technical equipment, or Japanese water stones is the only thing that will get their knife sharp. That's not the case. It's a good technique. A good technique, you can get a razor edge just using wet and dry sandpaper. It's cheap and convenient. When you want to work on the edge, each pass having a look to see what's happening with the marker, where it's been taken off. Right, so these are all the wet and dry papers I eventually went through. 400 grit. You can really feel how tough this is. This is for getting out all the nicks and dents and big scratches. It might take a few goes over with that. Then it's 600 grit. Still pretty grippy. Makes the scratches a bit smaller. Then onto the 800 grit. It's getting more refined now. By the time you get to the 800, you'd want to have got out all of the big scratches, and this is where you want to get a consistent scratching across the blade. Then I went on to the 1000 grit, which is a lot smoother now. You can't really feel it. It feels a bit felty almost. 1000 grit. And I did 1500 grit, even more refined than the 2000 grit, which is more or less just a polishing. Now I've done this because it was really badly scratched and marked up, but if you have your knife and you're just doing light use, then you could probably start at 800 grit, maybe upwards. So let's see how the blade's looking now. There we go. You can see. So what we've done is just gone through the grits and got the scratches a lot smaller. So even though it looks shiny and really polished, that just means that there's fine scratches there. Much finer than the original ones. So I'm happy with that. Let's go on to the last part of the process, stropping. It's just a leather strop, one rough side, one smooth, and what I use is auto sole, and just run some auto sole along it. Just like that. You want to marker up the knife again so you can see what's been taken off. If I've just been using the knife lightly, say cutting food or wrappers or things like that, I might just give it another strop at the end of the day. But this has had a lot of heavy use, so I had to put the edge back on it. And all the strop basically is that's even finer than any of the wet and dry sandpaper, and do exactly the same. You don't need to put pressure on it, just rub it over. Let's see how we're doing and give it a bit of a wipe off to have a look at progress. Sometimes it's good just to wipe the metal off and the auto sole, just to see how it's coming through. So, you can see, lovely finish on it. And see all the marking along here, all the pitting. What I do to get rid of that is just add some more auto sole. I've tried, people talk about Starky Blue or Smurf Poo, but I've had a block of that and I found it too hard and too coarse, and it grips the leather and really rips it up. And this seems to give a much better finish. And ultimately what you're looking for is the finest scratches possible. The finer the scratches, the sharper it will be, and the auto sole gives it a near mirror finish. So that's very, very fine scratches. Now I'm just going to work this over for a little while, then I'll turn the camera back on and show you the finished result. Let's see what we've got for the finished product. Like a mirror finish. Like brand new. See, all of the big scratches removed now. But does it cut? So let's have a look at the finished result now. You can see it's a lot sharper and a lot shinier as well. You can still see the scratch marks, but that's what's made it sharp. You can see how polished over it is now. Let's see how sharp it is. just gliding through there. It's even good enough to shave with.